And I guess
Right.
Repentance would
People
have been,
play keep Aldor still, but not everyone. Definitely no
yeah,
equality though.
yeah, Repentance probably would have been the worst case scenario there if it was
Right.
already in play. But I mean, Competitive Spirit was also pretty solid. You get four minions buffed up. Um, I would like to see the Keeper. I mean, I guess it's gonna get value somehow, but yeah, you definitely don't want to leave it at 7/7 because that'll leave a lot of value to be gained from BGH.
Right. So
Which
it looks like he's gonna go to take out the Molten Giant here. So he has a choice. He can actually use his face to take down the Molten Giant, which is actually not the worst option for him right now. Looks like he's gonna go for that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think life is too important here. You're you're the aggressor in the matchup. You don't really care about taking all that damage. Um, I mean, unless you're scared of the burst combo, but that's a lot of mana. A Theracid hasn't been played yet. You could be a little worried about it in the back of your head, but
Right.
I
Especially
like.
because you have the second challenger in Tyrion coming up for your turn 7 and 8. It's gonna be pretty hard for your opponent to deal with no matter what he does. So actually, Sir Noble can go for a clear here, or almost clear with the Hellfire.
Yep.
But he's gonna have to do some more damage to himself and leave himself with a really low life total.
I think that's what he wanted to see there. The Avenge going on to the Spider.
All right, that was a good one.
Yeah, earlier it didn't happen, but now we've come full circle. The Avenge has gone on to the Spider, and I think
So
Ironbeak Hellfire could be good.
right, Ironbeak Hellfire clears the board.
This might be. I guess this way you keep the owl instead of. Wait a second. Okay.
Okay.
This way he saves the owl, but he leaves damage on the board,
Right,
which when you're at 8 health, I think is very risky. He doesn't even have Reno yet.
right. I think that might have been a bit of a rote play by Sir Noble, because he could have cleared by playing the owl there, right? I don't know if he's worried about Tyrion or he just chose not to play the owl there. But
Yeah.
leaving the 2/1/1s is a little bit scary when you're at 8 life for sure.
I think he's definitely thinking about Tyrion when he's keeping this owl. I guess he was just hoping his opponent wouldn't have enough damage to finish him, and this way he'll still have the owl just in case of Tyrion.
Right. He can
Um,
heal for 6 here with the Farseer. It'll keep him alive for one more turn, but he's gonna need to find an answer for this Tyrion in the next turn.
yeah,
He could potentially draw into Reno to stall the game a little longer, but he's gonna need a Shadow Flame to catch up here.
yeah. Reno into Shadowflame would definitely be uh, pretty much the optimal draws, I think. He has been tapping a little bit this game, but his turns have been kind of clogged with playing minions because there's so many minions being played by the paladin. You just have to keep up. You can't afford to skip out on playing stuff. And yeah, I don't see a way out here. Um, I guess tap into Reno would have given him another turn. That would have been the best way to do it. But wow, fearsome
Right.
Doomguard.
Fearsome Doomguard. That's different.
Yeah, I guess if you just want another big threat that can't be BGH, that's one of the options you have. Maybe he's got Void Caller in here and he just wanted more demon synergy, but yep, the well played comes out from Chernobyl. Yeah, just it's rough when you're playing a Reno deck and you don't draw your namesake card. You don't draw your Reno Jackson and you can't heal up
Right.
against an aggressive deck. So
Yeah. And it was like the Photap had the double challengers into Tyrion, and Chernobyl just didn't have an answer to it. So it's pretty rough for him.
yeah, agreed. So that's gonna be a 1-0 lead for St. John's University Red Storm. I like the schools that actually come up with names rather than just being insert college here, Hearthstone. Uh,
I agree.
I mean, I'm not trying to flame MIT or anything for their name, but I don't know. I just like it when people come up with their creative names. I mean, I understand you're busy with school and stuff. You don't have time to come up with a cool name for your Hearthstone team, but when there is a cool one, I appreciate it. So, all right, we are going to be getting ready for game two. I would like to mention really quick, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Twitch and Azus ROG, for making all this possible. Big thanks to them. You can follow at Azus ROG on Twitter, and of course, you're watching this on Twitch. We're proud to be affiliated with the largest gaming stream provider in the world. So, yeah. Next up, we're going to have Fro116 from MIT versus Rechkovsky 2 from St. John's University.
Right, so in game two, we're gonna see Paladin is now banned for St. John's, and Warlock is banned for MIT.
Yep, since those classes were played, they can no longer be used by their respective schools. Both of those classes are very popular, though. I would expect at least Paladin to be played from both schools at some point, or
Right.
from MIT at some point during the rest of this match.
Yeah. Looks like our players are queuing up. We'll be ready in just a moment.
Maybe we'll see some Burn Shaman. That's always a popular choice these days. I mean, a
Right.
few days ago we saw an all aggro lineup from one of the schools. I forget who it was. I think it was Maryville. They brought all aggressive decks. They pretty much all had Leroy Jenkins. I think like even their warrior deck and like their mage deck. And it was ridiculous. But those guys are 3-0 now this season, so it's been working out well for them.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, there's definitely some strategy in building a lineup, and if you're gonna choose to go an all aggressive lineup, then you're betting on your opponent not being able to deal with your aggressive lineup, right? So in
Yeah.
Conquest, it's something you can do, like tech against like one class in a person's lineup.
Yeah, and also you don't really expect Warrior to come out of the gates with like a Leper Gnome into like a Haunted Creeper and that kind of
Right.
stuff.
Oh,
You're
so
not.
there was aggro warrior. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. Aggro Warrior actually beat Druid during that match, so that
Wow.
was pretty fun to watch. Although I'm sure it wasn't fun for the Druid player, but yeah.
All right. So on MIT side, we look like we have Fro here on the Control Priest, and we have Rushkovsky on what seems to be a zoo.
Yep. And the Warlock for St. John's coming out right away, or yeah, for St. John's coming out right away here as a yeah, they
Oh,
want to play
so
their Zoo deck.
Fro picks up back-to-back Toshleys off his curators here. So he's gonna have a lot of late game going into this.
Yeah, that sounds pretty ridiculous. I actually have to reset the spectator client here, as I didn't really see what was going on there. But two Toshleys? That's a lot of Toshleys. I mean, normally you're only supposed to have one copy of each legendary in your deck, but wow.
And it looks like Fro is actually running a more traditional version of the Control Priest, running the Blade Masters, which leads me to think that if he's running double Blade Masters, he's probably not running Death Lords.
Yeah, and he probably is playing Circle of Healing as well.
Right.
So maybe Circle of Healings and Akanai, Soul Priest, and stuff like that are in this deck.
Right.
Injured Blade Master used to be like one of the most important cards for the Priest mid-range strategy because you just buff that guy up to like a 4/9 and it's just unkillable. Even if you silence it, it's like a 4/7 once you heal it
Right.
up. But
Unfortunately, in this matchup, without the Circle of Healing, the 4/3 is gonna die to a Flame Imp, which feels pretty bad. So actually, Fro is running the Death Lords as well.
yeah, some interesting choices. I kind of wonder what he cut, but I guess we'll see as the game goes on. We'll get more information on what he's playing.
Kind of interesting that he chooses to play the second Blade Master here rather than the Death Lord.
Hmm. Yeah, so I mean, you can assume your opponent's just gonna trade their Dark Peddler because it's a 3/2. You might as well take that good trade.
Right.
Or maybe an implosion will happen or something like that. I guess Fro is just doing his best to set up this light bomb. Next turn he can play Death Lord and heal. I mean, I guess instead of that he could have played Injured Blade Master and healed the Blade Master. But
Right.
yeah,
So if he had
opted to go
played
with
the
this
Death
one.
Lord this turn, it's true that it does die to the minions on board, but especially since most of the minions in Zoo are not very threatening on their own. And he even has the Shadow Word Death to deal with, a potential Doomguard that comes out, right? So he's
Yep.
going to choose to go for the Death Lord this turn. I think that's fine. It's a pretty safe play. And even if he doesn't choose to Light Bomb next turn, he picks up the Belcher, which is pretty good.
Yeah, Belcher was certainly a nice pickup there. Not sure how much these Tashes are going to do for him. I don't know what his other options were, but I'm guessing they weren't that great. But usually off Museum Curator, there is one or two good cards. A lot of the Death Rattle cards are just inherently good. Uh, so
Alright.
we'll see how those play out for him. But looking at the board from Rachkovsky's side, he's got a lot of options here. You probably don't want to Doomguard on this turn. I mean, you've got to be concerned about Light Bomb when you're playing against a Deathlord Priest deck, so
Right.
definitely like to see him do his best to play around that. And not the best thing to summon off of your
Yeah.
off the Deathlord there.
So he decides to play out the egg as well here, maybe playing around Nova a little bit. So everything here still dies to Light Bomb with the exception of the 2/4 and the 1/2. Oh, and the 2/3 as well. But so by playing the egg here, he actually blocked the Imgang boss from summoning another 1/1.
Yeah, which is it's weird, but I don't think it's too big of a deal.
Yeah, not a huge deal. Especially with this Loatheb to follow up, it's gonna be pretty hard for Fro to recover from here.
Yeah, that was an awesome draw. I mean, it was already looking really good for Rachkovsky, but
Right.
that Lotheb just
Loatheb pretty much sealed it right there.
yeah, Lotheb is a really, really good card for just putting the last nail in the coffin and closing the game out, plus an Iron Beak Owl to take out the silence. And yeah, this is definitely lethal damage. The BM implosion on his own owl. And that's going to be the concession from Fro, and a 2-0 lead now from St. John's. We might have a very quick match on our hands here, depending on how this next game goes. We're going to need Ken 961996 to take the game for his team here.
Right. We're gonna see a comeback here. I feel like we've had actually quite a few 3-0s in the season already.
Yeah, we actually have had a couple. I can't remember what matches for sure. It escapes me right now, but yeah, we've definitely had some 3-0s. I know Georgia Tech actually had a 3-0 the other day, this Wednesday that just happened, and Georgia Tech is they're just on fire when it comes to Hearthstone. They're doing really really well. They won last season, and even though they've got a loss already this season, they're still looking really good. Um, Unfortunately, we didn't get to see how they lost, so don't know how that went down, but yeah, we'll see how the rest of the season plays out for them. As for these two teams, I mean, they're both 1-1 so far this season. To get to playoffs, you definitely want to hit that 3-1 point. You don't want to take another loss here because that would probably put you out. And yeah, we're getting ready to start game 3 here in a couple moments.
Alright, so it looks like we've got Ken from MIT on Rogue. Interesting. So a deck that we don't see it here very often. Good to see some Rogue. And we've got Winston J.Com from St. John's University on Shaman.
Yeah, I think this does not look very good for the Rogue. I mean, it used to be a great matchup for Rogue. Like Shaman was a slow deck. You could take your time, you Blade Flurry when you feel like it, but with the introduction of Tunnel Trog and Leper Gnome and tons of burn spells being put into the Shaman deck these days, you don't have as much time as you used to as a Rogue.
Right. Fortunately though for Ken, it seems like Ken has a pretty good start to deal with aggro right here. He's got double backstab followed up by the SI and the flurry. So he's gonna be able to control this early game board here. We'll just see how much pressure Winston J.Com can build up before Ken's forced to use this flurry.
Yeah, if there's anything that's gonna help you survive the early game, I mean, 2 backstabs plus an SI agent, that's a lot of things that'll help you survive the early game. And Blade Flurry to back it up a little later on. But
Right.
it looks like Winston is just deciding whether or not he wants to play as Leper Gnome, unless my is Winston deciding on whether or not to coin, or I can't really tell.
So I guess he's thinking about whether he has a couple options. He can choose to go double one drops, or um, he can choose to just draw here and buff his 1 3x2, which is pretty good.
Yep, my spectator client froze again. Getting that restarted.
Alright, so Ken decides to go with the backstab SI there. Winston Jacom looking at the lightning bolt, looks like, to deal with the 3/3. So he only has 1 mana this turn, so unfortunately he can't play the Tunnel Trog as well.
Yeah, that is pretty rough, but I definitely like using the lightning bolt instead of the rock biter. That's something you want to save for Doomhammer if possible.
Right.
Next turn he could Tunnel Trog and Crackle, depending on how things look. And this turn, Ken gets a little bit of time that he can take off and, just prep a sprint, draw some cards, draw some answers, hopefully. And all right, Doomhammer. That is
Alright.
very
So
foreboding.
got the Doomhammer on 5, so Winston Jacom is going to be careful not to overload this turn so he can be sure to play the Doomhammer next turn.
Yep. I definitely like the choice there, not to just crackle your opponent's face. Doesn't get much done. The 1/1 is not that great because I mean it does do 1 damage if it manages to hit your opponent, but just dies so easily. I think something like spell damage or taunt might have been better. On Ken's side of the board, he's got some options. You want to get a threat in play this turn, I think. But then again, Blood Mage Fan of Knives looks pretty solid.
Blood Mage Fan of Knives looks really enticing, but I also kind of do like getting the Teacher out on board here. It looks like he's going to go for neither of those options, actually going for the big Edwin instead. So he's going to Abyss this Tunnel Trog and throw out the 6/6 Edwin.
Yep, I like this play a lot. I think Ken recognizes that he needs to get some damage on board, or else he's just gonna inevitably die before he can do anything. Like, if you just
Right.
spend the whole game dealing with your opponent's threats and never playing your own,
Right.
usually you run out of answers before they run out of threats. I mean, it really depends, but if they're getting damage in on you throughout the game and you're not doing any damage to them, then yeah, your opponent's going to get a big advantage. So going with that Edwin definitely seems right, but is it going to be enough as Winston has a lot of damage in his hand here?
Right. So Ken's gonna be pushing at least 9 damage every turn now if Winston chooses not to remove here. But Winston's also got a ton of bursts in his hand. He's got the Rock Biter for 10 damage, and he just picked up a Lava Burst instead. So he actually has enough to kill Ken from his hand, but he doesn't have enough mana right now.
Yep. And I mean, you are somewhat concerned that a rogue who already has 9 damage on board, 7 mana next turn, like, there's a chance the rogue can kill you, just like how you can kill the rogue. So I guess
Right.
Winston's just got to decide how he wants to, spend his cards, whether or not to just go full face or to remove some stuff.
So it looks like he's just gonna go full face here. So he's gonna set up the 2-turn lethal, go face with the Rock Biter for 10.
Yeah, this seems like the most efficient way to do it. I think this way, even if a Lotheb is played, like, yeah, Lotheb, Healbot, this covers most of the defensive options I think that Ken could have. I mean, you've got the Doomhammer up, you got the 2 damage off Leopardnum, you've got plenty. And Ken doesn't have lethal here. I think if he had a preparation, he could actually have a chance for lethal, depending on what the oils would land on, because Violet
Right.
Teacher makes 1/1s, but in this case, I don't think there's a way out. I guess you could draw and see what you get. But man, it's got to be rough to just run your rogue straight into the Burn Shaman deck. This is definitely not what you want to see when you bring your Tinker's Oil Rogue. You would rather play against something a little bit less aggressive. Like, even with that double backstab SI Agent start, just still could not keep up with this. Maybe if the Doomhammer wasn't drawn for Winston, the game would have been different, but wow, that's going to be a 3-0 from St. John's, and that puts them at that actually puts them at 2-1 now this season. They were 4-0 last season. So not quite as good, but
Right.
still pretty solid for
So
them so far.
yeah, really quick match there. Um, so I would say that's maybe slightly favored matchup wise for St. John's side, but also really well done overall.
Yep. Yeah, I think they played it well. I mean, things kind of panned out for them nicely. Like it was rough for MIT in some of those games, but that's just the way Hearthstone works sometimes. You got to work with what you got, and St. John's capitalized on what they had there. So good games to both schools, even though that's a rough loss for MIT. Um, yeah. And with that, we would like to thank our sponsors once again, Twitch and Asus ROG, for them making all this stuff possible. And we're going to get ready to start the second match pretty soon here. I think we're going to take a quick break, so be sure to stick around. We're going to have what schools are playing again? Let's see, Michigan versus Wisconsin. So that
Right.
should be pretty awesome. We'll be back after this break.
Okay, see you soon.